If you keep a backup plan, you already decided that your dream will fail. Look, being an asthmatic kid, right, that I just wanted to be, as a kid, right, just healthy. It was crazy growing up because I remember watching all the karate movies, right, and freaking Van Damme and freaking, what was it? Well, not a lot of Bruce Lee. I mean, at all, really. I don't think I've ever watched a Bruce Lee movie, beginning to end. But, I'd watch all these movies, right? And Van Damme was my favorite, right? Like, you know what I'm talking about. Freaking spinning back kick that he throws. Out of this world. Yeah, so, I was an asthmatic kid. And, see, when my parents got divorced, I actually woke up in the hospital, right? It was emotional for me. That wasn't asthma that I had, right? It was emotional driven, right? So, the doctor said that I was born with it. And I needed, right, like a very strong feeling, right, whether of happiness or sadness, right, to trigger it. And that's what happened. So, that was when I was 6 years old. And, I couldn't play out there in Paraguay. Like, it's either soccer or soccer when you play sports, So I couldn't play, right? I couldn't run a lot. Like, I'm talking about the asthma I had, it was waking up in hospitals, right, every single time, with an IV in my arm. And it would be like, oh, I'd wake up at the hospital and be like, oh, I guess I almost died again. That was my life, right? 7, 8, 9 years old. Crazy, right? It was wild. So anyways, in that process, right, I watched movies, right, like freaking Bloodsport, right? And I just wanted to be a martial artist so bad, right? I watch a lot of, Steven Seagal too. And all these guys. And, like Karate Kid, when you watch the movie, right, they train, gets the girl, right, he's like a little loser first, and then, through martial arts, right, like, becomes awesome. And as a sick kid, right, I was inside a lot. I'd play, but, when I'm inside watching movies, or I was a little sick, just freaking, I'm like, man, that would be so awesome, right, be healthy, right, be tough, right, be strong. Because when I was a kid, right, being weak like a little sissy wasn't cool. I was always like the last ones, when we go out and climb trees and do these different things. But but you try to keep up, right? And you know what I'm talking about. You get better at it, right? Like tougher and stronger, and and you keep up and bicycles and all this stuff, the stuff we used to do, right? You leave the house, it's freaking like 11 a.m. and go out to like 3-4 neighborhoods like far, right? Go inside these these what's it called, abandoned houses, right? And go through freaking tunnels and all that. That was growing up back then, right? So being tough was like a thing, right? Like cool. Then one day we go to the doctor. And the doctor tells my mom that she had a patient that was joined karate, and the stretches were actually helping her. I'm like, no way. I wanted to train Muay Thai so bad, right? I wanted to kickbox, right? Watching freaking Kickboxer and stuff, right? And now it's more known. At the time, you couldn't find a legitimate kickboxing, right? Like a real Muay Thai spot. And And my mom's like, okay, let's go find this place, right? So we start looking, right? And I find karate, taekwondo. I'm like, damn, like Muay Thai. Nobody had Muay Thai. There was like full contact, all that. So I landed in this taekwondo academy, right? My buddies were training there. Jose Samaniego, great instructor. And yeah, man, I started training, right? I loved it, freaking all in. I love the discipline, every single thing of it, right? Became flexible and all that, right? So he tells me one day, hey, that you go, my mom would take me to Blockbuster on Fridays, right? And I'd go out, right, and get all these movies for the weekend, right? And just freaking watch all these martial arts movies. So my instructor one day, he goes out, right? And he tells me, he's like, hey, you know how you get all these movies right over the weekends? He's like, you should rent Ultimate Fighting 1, 2, and 3. I think it was at first 3 or 4, right? 1, 2, and 3. And you should watch that, man. It's like the real deal, right? So I'm at Blockbuster, right, that weekend, and I get these things, right? And I see Hoist Gracie. I'm like, what? This is crazy. Right? And I learned what jiu-jitsu is. I'm like, what? No way. I'm like, there's no way these guys can take me down. I'll freaking spinning kick them to the freaking chin, right? And, right, so I saw this. It was crazy, you know. I remember being young. Like, whoa, you know, like no gloves. It was wild, man. And in Paraguay, you know, like they have all of these like secondhand stuff, fake stuff on the streets. So, like, you got to look it up. The downtown where I grew up in Paraguay, Ciudad del Este, wild. So anyways, you have all these like counterfeit, right, DVDs and stuff. And what they had, right, Vanderlei Silva, all these like before, you know, IVCs and whatnot. You know, international valetudos and whatnot. And the cover was like freaking, you know, jacked up full of blood. Like, damn. I'm like, that's wild. And in that process, right, I was in boarding school. I went to a boarding school, right? And then when I came back, right, I knew about jiu-jitsu. I wasn't training, obviously, right, during that time. I met this one Brazilian guy on New Year's Eve. We met him. He was a brown belt, legit guy from Nova União, out there from Rio. He was living in the South, right? He's a big-ass black dude, right? And the dude was legit. He was like third and second place as a purple belt, right? He lost to Paulão Filho and whatnot, right? In the semis or in the finals. Legit, right? So this guy, he was a bouncer, right, at this club. And, you know, it's South America, Paraguay. I don't know now how the laws are, but at the time we you know, you're 16, 17, 15 years old, right? You're tall enough, you look 18, you get in the club, right? No ID needed. So anyways, we're all kids, right? We're 15, yeah, 15 years old. 15 and 16, right, the group, and we're there, you know, talking to the guys, right? There was like some judo black belts as well, right? This whole crew that came from the Brazilian side, right? They cross a bridge right there to work at the club, right? And to bounce. So we're talking to these guys, right, all night, and he's like, dude, you find a spot where I can teach, and I'll start teaching. Our friends, right, our friend's dad was the president of a country club called Área Uno, right? We made the connections and whatnot. Other buddies, right, that were already training. Actually, there were two buddies that were training. They were older, so they could drive right to the Brazilian side. And they were already blue belts. They got some freaking mats, right, made out of, I think it was hay, you know, like that thing. It was dusty as hell. We had to put them all together, but we got the mats. Our friend's dad, that was the president of Área Uno, he got us a room. We didn't have to pay anything. So on January 3rd of 1998, right, we had our first class, 17 buddies, and we had our first jiu-jitsu lesson. And it was the first time that I got my shirt off my back, right, and I freaking squeezed sweat out of it. I was like, wow, this is crazy. And I learned how to escape the mount, how to pass a guard, right, mount, and do 3 submissions, right? A choke, a key lock, and an armbar. I said, no way, this is it. I was meant to learn this thing, right? Mind you, I was supposed to get my black belt, right, that weekend. I never went back to Taekwondo. So look, I made the decision, right? I'm gonna do this thing. I'm gonna fight MMA. This thing is wild, right? I'm good at this, right? I learned how to do the choke, the key lock, and an armbar. I said, no, that's it. So I started training, right? Fast forward, you know, I'm training. My aunt's boyfriend at the time, right? In another city, it was like around Christmas, right? I'm out there and I'm always like kicking and doing all these things, right? I was young, right? Kicking on people's heads and shit, right? You know, like right there. So, you know, I'm doing all these moves, right? And he says, oh, you're going to be, and I'm talking about, I'm going to be a professional fighter. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be a world champion, right? All these things. And he's like, oh, you're going to be Oscar de la Paila, he says, not de la olla, right? Olla in Spanish is like a cooking thing. I forget the name right now. Like, yeah, you're like Oscar de la Pan, you know, de la Paila, he says, right? And I'm just like, fuck you. I'm gonna show you right in my head, like, fuck you. I'm gonna show you, and I'm gonna, and you start having, right, these like chips on your shoulder, like I'm gonna do this, right? Fast forward. So then, I graduated high school. I quit my second semester of kinesiology, and I tell my mom, I'm going to the States. I'm going to be a freaking UFC fighter. She's like, what? I'm not going to help you or whatever financially. I'm like, I'm going to make it happen. And I came out here, right? I had nothing else. I knew it was going to work. There was nothing you could tell me without a shadow of a doubt. I knew that was going to happen. I didn't have and everybody would tell me, hey, don't just do that, right? You should have a plan B or whatever in case it doesn't work. In my head, like, bitch, what do you mean it's not gonna work? Of course it's gonna work. And that's the mindset, right? Like it's gonna work. You don't have plan B, because if you have a plan B, it means that you're making room in your mind and your spirit that is not gonna work. So the only way you make it happen is when you know, right? Hey, this is what I'm doing, and you're all in. There's no freaking, like, oh, kinda, That's why in the world of business, there's a lot of people that say they want to win, but since you don't get punched in the face, right? Talk is cheap. But on the mats, right? Like you got to cover your ass, right? You say you're gonna do it, right? And okay, you practice and you go out there, right? And you go out there and you keep doing it, right? Until you can cover your ass. That's the play. So I'm telling you this whole story because when you have a plan B, right, a second plan, it's because you're already telling yourself it's not going to work. So successful people, right, peak performers, world champions, the best of the best, right, successful business people, successful family, heads of the family. It is not just financial, right? If you're a great dad, right, you got your shit going, right, you're raising a good family, dude, you're a success. But they all made a decision to go all in. A dad that is going to be a good dad doesn't say, I have a second, he has this another option in case this doesn't pan out. No, he knows 100% he's going to raise that family. So that's the mindset that you got to have, right? When you're going to go to the highest levels, or when you're going to go to places that your mind and that comes from your heart, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to do it. Because you got to know one thing is that if you don't, whatever comes from your heart, whatever desire you have, dude, that comes from a higher power. Because you're not going to have it in there if it's not possible for you to achieve it. Dude, anything is possible. Even Allen Iverson became a great in basketball. Homeboy is shorter than I am. Anything is possible, dude. One of the greatest runners of our time, right? Prefontaine. The dude had no business running, right? And went out there and said, dude, I'm going to crush everybody. And he did. That's the mindset that you need to have, right? Conor McGregor, they right? Didn't have anything. His girlfriend was supporting the guy, right? They were getting after it, right? The dude knew what was going to happen. So that's the key. That's the secret, right? To go all in and really get after it, right? No room for like, oh, plan B. Plan B, you already know it's not going to happen. I'm letting you know right now. But when you go all in and you know without a shadow of a doubt, because God put it in your heart and you know you can get it and you can get it done, because you're created. If you're created right in His image, then, dude, you're greatness. And comfort is the enemy of all greatness. And commitment creates clarity. So look, write down what burning the boats looks like in your current goal. And take one irreversible action today.